Have you ever been on a team where slowly but surely things just started to feel off? Where that great energy you had at the beginning just kind of disappears? That's what we're digging into today. That slow, painful erosion of collective trust. So let's kick things off with a really strong word: collude. I know it sounds pretty intense, right? To work with others secretly, often dishonestly. But why start here? Well, because doesn't that word just perfectly capture that weird, unsettling feeling when team dynamics start to go wrong behind the scenes? And that really brings us to the core question here, one that I'm sure you've asked yourself before. At what point does that great vibe of teamwork just curdle? When does it quietly turn into something that just feels, well, wrong? To really pinpoint where that feeling comes from, we've got to look at what's actually happening around us. So let's dive into section 1, the teamwork that isn't. It usually starts in really subtle ways. The communication doesn't just stop, it gets worse. It's that super vague email when you desperately need details. It's seeing that read receipt and then nothing. A total wall of silence. And at the exact same time, you start noticing that some people aren't just having a busy week. They've pretty much stopped pulling their weight. Their tasks are always almost done. And somehow their work quietly lands on your plate. The whole balance is just broken. And once those first little cracks start to show, wow, they can spread incredibly fast. Which brings us to section 2, where we're going to look at the signs of a breakdown that are much harder to ignore. What's fascinating here is how this escalates. It's not just passive neglect anymore. It moves from poor communication into active, deliberate destruction of morale. Think about it, the person who shoots down every single idea in a meeting or constantly spreads negative gossip. Then comes the obvious lack of care, people literally scrolling on their phones during an important discussion. But that last one, that's the real kicker. People doing all of this right out in the open with absolutely zero remorse, almost like they know nothing's going to happen to them. This image is just a perfect metaphor for that feeling. Picture it. You're all in a boat, everyone's rowing together, and it even looks like you're in sync. But then you look up and you realize you're all heading straight for a waterfall. Yep, you're all moving together, but you're moving towards a complete disaster. So, who's supposed to be steering that boat? That is a critical question, and we're going to explore that in Section 3, the leadership blind spot. Okay, this part is so crucial for understanding where the responsibility really lies. Between teammates, people on the same level, there's no loyalty on day one. It has to be earned. That first impression is absolutely everything. But the leadership, they're the ones responsible for setting the stage from the get-go. They create the tone, the momentum. They're the ones who either steer that boat to safety or just let it drift towards the waterfall. So when you're the one in the boat who sees that waterfall coming, you're suddenly faced with a choice. And that brings us to Section 4, a fork in the road. And here's the real dilemma, the thing that makes this so hard. The feeling of being a team might be totally gone. The trust, completely shattered. But the goal itself, the project, the mission, that might actually still be salvageable. So this forces you to choose between two very different paths. Option 1, you find a new fuel. You decide to forget the team aspect and dig deep to find some personal, internal motivation to get the job done. Or option 2, you protect your peace. You make the incredibly tough call to walk away, to basically jump out of the boat to save your own mental health. This whole journey, from that first gut feeling that something's off, all the way to this impossible choice, it really forces us to think about a much bigger idea. Let's get into our final section, the courage to trust. Because when you really break it all down and think about what's been lost, you start to realize something. The real meaning of trust isn't about control. It's not about making sure other people do exactly what you want. It's about something much deeper. It's about courage. And this idea is captured so perfectly in this one sentence. Trust is the quiet agreement we make with the future. Let that sink in for a moment. So what does that actually mean for us? It means that every single time we collaborate, we're making a kind of deal with the unknown. Trust is an act of courage, not control. It's that small leap of faith you take every time you rely on a colleague or share a vulnerable idea or simply choose to believe in a shared goal. And that leaves us all with one final question to think about. If trust is truly an agreement we make with the future, what kind of agreement are you making today?